We're ready, Larry.
Hey everybody, Larry, Fort Worth Memories Museum and Group, and all of our other groups. It's 10 o'clock, it's Tuesday, it's Hometown Heroes. Mary is out with, she can't talk.
She can't talk. I thought that was going to be good. We had a board meeting last night, and I thought, well, Mary can't talk tonight, so it'll be a short meeting, but it actually lasted longer because she had to write notes,
Right.
and we had to read the notes. So we're thinking about you, Mary, and looking forward to having you back. This week, we have two Navy veterans who are cartoonists. That wasn't their job in the Navy, but while they were in the Navy, they started drawing cartoons.
Developing their
skills as cartoonists. Yeah. And I remember my uncle was in World War II, and he was in the Navy. And I can remember seeing some pictures of him drawing, and that's kind of where I think he started his artist life, was drawing cartoons in the Navy. So this is George Bettis, and this is Milburn Taylor. And George is a native of Fort Worth. Milburn's a native of Dallas. Mm-hmm. And I think you went to Burleson High School. You finished
closed it down.
And you went to Tech High School.
Yep.
Grew up in River Oaks. So,
yeah.
So we've got some local guys,
people
that kind of came back. You've lived down in Austin area for a few years and maintained a
43.
Well, that is a few years. And you're planning on moving to Fort Worth.
Yeah, back.
Okay. Because you maintained a home here for a while. And we met him through roll call. I mean, yeah. George has been at roll call for a long time. And Milburn, you've been there
3 months.
3 months. So, and Mary just kind of got these two guys that were artists together and said, hey, let's see what we can do to get them on the Hometown Heroes.
Well, when I found out he was a cartoonist, I said, I got to meet this guy because there's not many of us cartoonists around, and it was a real joy to get a chance to meet him the other couple months back.
The cartoonists, they kind of take some of the serious stuff and put some humor into things, and make life a little easier and a little lighter for the other people, I think. So
I like the Mary Poppins song, a spoonful of humor makes the medicine go down.
Yeah, yeah. So,
I mean, that's slightly adapted.
Yeah. And so both of you, you went in the Navy. What year did you go in the Navy, George?
I went back in the Navy in 1955.
Okay. And
back there then, we didn't have the pockets we have now, and the zippers on the side. We can slide into the uniform, but the only way we carried our water was in our socks.
Is that right?
And,
I didn't know that.
Did you have the 13 buttons?
Yeah, we had the 13 buttons. And
you had to unbutton 13 buttons to go to the bathroom?
Yep.
Yeah, sometimes.
You got to plan ahead, don't you?
Well, do you know why they have the 13 buttons?
For the 13 colonies.
No. Well, maybe. But if you're go overboard, you can pop them off in a hurry.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really, and then you make water wings out of your pants.
You throw those things over your head and make buoys out of it.
Yeah.
And they work real well.
So,
yeah. Milburn, when did you go in the Navy?
1960.
Okay, so y'all were just 5 years apart.
Yeah.
George got out of the Navy and then went in the Marines.
I was in the Marines in 1960.
And then and you were down in Cuba.
Yeah, I made it down to Cuba during the missile crisis. Took a machine gun squad down there.
You were telling me that we weren't too scared until you got down there and figured out, I might have to take these guys to war. And somebody
I was in charge of a machine gun squad. And I told my guys, I said, not to worry, I'll bring you back. But the closer I got to the jumping off, I said, darn, I told those guys I'd bring them back. I said, what's going to happen when the bullets start flying and people start dying around? I don't even know whether I'm going to make it back or not. But God smiled on us and brought us back. Prior to the Cuban Missile Crisis, people don't know about this, but I was with the 3rd Marine Division over in Okinawa there, and we mounted out twice to go possibly fight before Vietnam. And we packed up our gear and flew to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, and camped in on on a hillside for 2 weeks before we got into our barracks. And it was a World War II barrack. We had to clean it all up and everything. And from there, we went on training for jungle warfare and all that kind of stuff. So
you went to the Philippines.
we
train
were in
for
the
that.
Philippines, yeah.
And you were in the Philippines too, weren't you? At one
For a
time?
short while, yes.
Yeah. So when we made it back to the United States, we got it made, you know. But less than a year later, we found ourselves on a boat going down to Cuba. And
I was
Place
stationed
after
in
that.
Pearl at the time, and our ship almost went to Cuba. It came that close. The only thing I thought was funny is whenever we stood guard on the ship, we had rifles but no bullets.
That's what George was talking to me about.
But when the Cuba crisis came out, they gave us bullets, and sure enough, somebody went nuts and started firing.
And that didn't ever make any sense to me. And we had guard duty. We had to guard stuff on post in the Army.
Yeah.
And they sent us to learn, get shotgun training, but they wouldn't give us any bullets.
Yeah.
So and then your general order or whatever it is, your order of the guard is, halt, do not move or I'll shoot. Well, they knew you couldn't shoot because you didn't have any bullets.
well, while we were in the Philippines, we went on a Huck patrol. The Huck was part of the communist regime in the jungles, warfare. And we went on a Huck patrol. We were asked for volunteers. I volunteered like an idiot and went on a Huck patrol. But they didn't give us any ammunition for our guns. And so we came back. Okay, nobody got hurt. We didn't find any Hucks, and they didn't find us. And we're probably happy about both of those situations. And then we went down to Cuba.
Remember, you started drawing when you were in the Navy? Is that, or did you draw some before that?
No, I think when I was in George C. Clark, I made one drawing of a fish in a fish tank. That was about it. But I worked in the family upholstery business. My dad was crippled and he needed some help. So 6 days a week. So there's never really a lot of personal time. So when I found it just natural to try, when I was in the Navy, I was a sonarman, and part of our duty was to, each of us individually had to clean the sonar rooms regularly. And as I sent an email to you, sometimes I'd spend an hour cleaning and then 3 hours making cartoon signs till the guys took their shoes off before they went in. And that's really how I started. And I think my first published cartoon was years later when I was stationed in Japan, and I drew a Christmas card for the base, and I was kind of proud of that.
And it just kind of blossomed after that.
Well, no.
No, it didn't?
Now it just kind of grew, and the more you do it, you learn and you look at other cartoonists and you just kind of evolve. And I was really influenced by a cartoonist named Sandra Boynton, and she does a lot of the hippopotamus greeting cards and things like elephants and things like that, because animals are neutral. You don't have to worry about sex, or you don't have to worry about black or white or Hispanic or whatnot. And so that influenced me because I've done a lot of animal characters over the years for that very same reason. You can make a point without offending too many people anyhow. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. George, you got some honors in the Navy because you designed the logo or whatever.
Intelligence Specialist Rating Badge. I designed that in 1975 and just got the award last week.
Let's see if we can get this on this camera here. This is a
Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Award.
He's got the Navy and Marine Corps
Achievement
Award. And what's so special about that award is you got it more than 40 years later.
Yeah,
or so?
Yeah, I got it this past 2 weeks ago, and the scripper says, "Well deserved. It only took the Navy 45 years to get it to you."
And you went out to NAS JRB Fort Worth,
Yeah,
and Captain McLean
yeah.
gave you that's pretty special.
Well, I went over to thank him for our lunch that we had over at the base 2 months or so ago, and the Master Chief says, "Don't you go away." You said, "We got something special for you." And there I was, my Bermuda shorts and a T-shirt, and the captain comes out and pins the medal on me. And he said, and then he says, "Tomorrow we're going to have a formal get together at the base theater," and that's when he read the citation and really gave me the medal. But 45 years.
Took a long time to get it.
I never expected anything like that.
Did you have some other work published while you were in the Navy?
Oh, well, yeah, I was very fortunate in 1966. I read an All Hands magazine where they were going to have a cartoon contest. It was for the Navy. And I said, well, I think I'll enter this thing. They say I've got talent. Let's put it to use and find out. So I was a baby Christian then, but I knelt by my bunk that morning. I said, Lord, I know the talent's coming from you. It's not me. And I said, if I ever win this thing, I'll give you the credit for all of it. And I got like everybody else. I said, no, it'll never happen. It will never happen. So I sent in 5 drawings. Vietnam was going on hot and heavy at that time. And the cartoon that won it for me was a cartoon on Vietnam. I had a little Vietnamese looking at a sailor, and the sailor looking at the Vietnamese. And he was saying to the Viet Cong, he said, "Are you Victor Charlie?" Well, that was the one that won it for me.
Is that right?
And I actually got a chance to meet a guy that had seen that cartoon, and he was beside him. He said, "I met the guy who drew Victor Charlie."
That's where you got the award for the cartoon.
That's it. And I still got the plaque at home. I'm very proud of it. It's getting old, like I am, but
like we all are.
And I found out later there's over 300 entries throughout the Navy, and there's bound to have been some pretty good stuff in there. And to have me win that award,
that's a big honor.
Was mind-boggling, because a couple of months went by, and one day a guy from personnel stopped by, and he says, "Bettis, you remember that cartoon contest you entered?" I had to do it on my own. Send in and everything. And I said, "Yeah, those cartoons were so bad they had to send them back, right?" He said, "No, man, you won first place in the whole United States Navy." I said, "Yeah, you the biggest liar I know of." It just didn't seem possible. And I didn't receive the award until after I had been discharged from the Navy. And
at least you didn't have to wait 40 years. Remember?
No. They sent it to Fort Worth. And I had joined a reserve unit, and my mom and dad got a chance to see me receive the award. But this new thing is blowing my mind. And then getting a chance to be with this guy here next to him, a real fine man. It's a cartoonist and has been in the business. I can learn some things from him.
Yeah, I think we never get too old to learn.
We never get too old to learn. You're right.
Before we started the podcast a while ago, Milburn was showing you his iPad, and you were drawing some pictures on his iPad, and I think I see an iPad in the future for you.
Yeah, I see
maybe
one
this
too.
afternoon.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to get me an iPad now.
Just don't get too frustrated. You might need to sit down with Milburn for an afternoon.
I'm willing to go to Austin even to
kind of get jump started on that.
Yeah, get started with him, because he's got so much knowledge up there. But I can learn from him.
When we first moved to Austin, I remember the day that I went from rubber cement and T-squares to electronics. Because I had a client that called me and said, we've got a disc from our ad agency in Dallas and we need to make a change. And it's in quark. And I said, what's quark? I had no idea. But that literally was the day that I realized this rubber cement T-square was gone. So I moved home, and I've told people all the years, I said, the first 3 years was 24/7 almost. Maybe I'd get 1 hour of billable time in. The rest of the time, how do you do this? How do you do that? How do you do this? And we didn't have all the tools, the YouTube and things like that back then.
Just think how much technology's changed
Oh,
since that first day that you had to use it.
well, our oldest son, or both of our sons are programmers, and our oldest son was telling me the other day, he said, Windows used to make changes every year and a half or so. And he said it's daily now. And so part of his job is trying to stay abreast. And he said it's almost impossible. And it's the same way here, you know, the animation, the whatever. But I've gotten to the point in my life where I'm kind of going full circle. I'm going back to my roots, what I enjoy doing, drawing and things like that. So that's what I'm doing now.
Because you had an ad agency or whatever.
I had a
design
studio.
stuff.
It started here in Fort Worth, and we had 5 employees. And I always tell people, I said, the only reason I never went to jail is because of my wife, because she took care of the books.
She knew enough math to keep you out of jail, right?
Yeah. And but when I got to Austin, I commuted for about a year between Fort Worth and Austin to keep the office open. Then I eventually closed it down. Then I had one person work with me a couple of times in Austin, but basically I've been freelancing that whole time. And again, trying to keep up with the technology is overwhelming
It is.
sometimes.
And now we've got this AI, this artificial intelligence, that's just blowing my mind.
Oh, I tried that the other day. Photoshop has a new beta version, and it's got an AI where you do that. And I typed in something about a dog, and in 20 seconds, there's this little puppy right there, cute as can be. And I thought, holy smokes. And I'm in the Texas Cartoonist group, and the chair of the group is Hector Cantu. And he's one of the co-authors on Baldo, the comic strip. And just for fun, I put in, give me a character in Photoshop, give me a character from Baldo, whatever, the comic strip. And this really weird drawing came up. It wasn't anything at all like I expected. So I emailed Hector and I said, you're safe for a while anyhow, because it totally misinterpreted that. But it's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing stuff.
One thing we need to do, George, is to get Milburn out to the base more, to be with other Navy people, because I know there's a lot of opportunity out there.
There are a lot of good stories that we could pick up on and draw cartoons.
Absolutely. You know, because at the JRB, you know, it's Joint Reserve Base.
Yeah.
You've got the Marines, and they are always good subjects for cartoons.
Yeah.
You know? And then you've got the Navy and the Air Force and the National Guard or the Texas Air Guard.
You know, wherever I went, I volunteered to work on newspaper staffs, you know, but they weren't up to all this electronic stuff back there then. And I drew a lot of cartoons for Navy publications and stuff like that. And that's how I really got into drawing the Navy cartoon and the things. And we can learn so much from our people.
I told you earlier, what I admire about George is he's 85.
Yeah, 85.
And still draws 6 hours a day, you know. And
well,
now
you gotta love it.
Now he's talking about maybe going to art school in Florida to learn animation. And they said, "You're how old?"
Things like that can happen.
Well, I don't think 85 is any age.
It's all up here.
You never get too old to learn. And it's like I told them when they interviewed me, maybe to go to school there. I said, I'm here to learn from you guys. And they said, well, we can probably learn something from you. But I said, I'm going to school to learn from you guys.
Because you two gentlemen, you have the stuff up here that you can look at stuff and design it with a pencil.
Yeah.
Where these other people, they're all electronic. So I think that you have the true art form.
It's been interesting to watch Pixar because at first I didn't like a lot of the movies that were coming out because they were flawless with technology, but they were missing the soul. Well, the last one I went to, I cried in. So they're getting there. But that's one of the things that makes drawing so personal. I just bought a book at the used bookstore, Bill Malden, World War II, and I've had one of his books forever. This is a big, thick book, and all his.
I probably got the same book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you only draw what you know, you know? I mean, otherwise it's artificial. And I think that's the way a lot of the technology is. They're more focused on the technology versus the emotions and things like that. But anyhow, it's an interesting world.
Yeah.
Well, also what we're being exposed to is talent around the world now because of the internet. And there's some wonderful cartoonists around the world.
And we can learn so much from each other.
Yeah.
Half Price Books is one of my favorite places to go look for training, for good books.
Well, I don't know if you realize it or not, but the kind of books that we grew up with are scarce these days. It's all manga comics and things like that. But I bought 5 the other day just to add to my collection.
Some newer comics or newer books or what?
No, these are all used books.
Okay.
You know, and
you save a lot of money. A lot of people spend thousands and thousands of dollars. You go to Half Price Books and you can get a good book for, say, $10 or $20.
well,
And
the books that I've always enjoyed are the books where the artists are talking about their work, not just the picture books, because you can find those online. But when they talk about their work, and that's what really makes it interesting.
And I think that's important, you know, just like a picture, because you brought a lot of pictures and George has a lot of pictures here. But, you know, we could take one of those pictures and we could say, Milburn, what were you thinking when you were drawing that? You know, you could probably elaborate and tell us, well, I was thinking about whenever I was doing this, or I saw this and it made me think about that.
well, you know,
Usually it happens so quickly you don't realize it. You know.
well, no wonder I'm drawing cartoons in my underwear on the morning because God will pop an idea in my head and I've got to get up and draw it. Then
Do you draw during the night too? Sometimes
I stay up all night trying to learn software.
I can understand why. This is an idea that God gave me the other day for kids trivia.
Bible trivia for kids.
Get them into reading their Bibles and stuff like that. And I thought about King David being a singer, is a poet and all that kind of stuff. So I drew that cartoon.
Turn that, kind of hold it up.
Oh.
Maybe we can kind of see it there.
It's in front of the mic.
Oh,
there you go. I think they can see it with this camera. And some of this, what we could do is kind of post it later too. Take some pictures of it and post it later. But I don't know if you could see that or not, but that's one of his current drawings. So.
but you know, I've put this. I sort of put my cartoons together again into a book form, like this one here. Your first day in heaven. You know, every day's a Friday in heaven. You don't have to worry about going back. Or, of course,
I should have brought one of my cartoons. I don't know where I've always enjoyed drawing angels for some reason. And one day, I don't know, the idea occurred to me, angel on the cloud with a New York style radiator banging on it says, I need more heat up here. You know, I don't know where it came from.
That'd be a good cartoon.
Oh yeah, you bet. And
so, you know, they just come. most of my work has been illustration, and I'd love to help people tell their story, especially in serious subjects. I've done drawings for wills and trusts for banks, highway safety, death on the highways, and things like that. At my age right now, I'm beginning just to explore with personal drawings and things I've had on my mind. I've got some sketches from the early 70s that I never developed.
Yeah.
I look back at it and I said, well, that's a pretty fun idea. I just think I'll draw it on my iPad.
Yeah, I got a ton of stuff that I could still work on, and one of the
Still
joys,
relevant.
one of the joys I've had as far as drawing cartoons is being a volunteer at a hospital. I just retired last year.
She's retired from what? What did you retire from? Are you
Volunteering at the
Are you
hospital,
still doing
Yeah.
some volunteer work?
3,600
I
hours.
know it.
3,600 hours at. I worked for the VA for a while. Did some cartoon work for the VA, and then I worked at Harris Southwest Hospital in the Progressive Care Unit, and then I heard about Hughley Hospital, and I fell in love with the people. So I went over there. I was about 5 years. The first 3 years, I pushed wheelchairs all over the place. And when I turned 80, I said, man, I'm getting old. And at the end of the day, my tongue was hanging around my kneecap. I couldn't hardly move at all.
And you were telling me a story about pushing a lady in a wheelchair.
Oh, yeah.
It kind of got scared.
That was interesting. I had only been on work schedule just a few minutes, and I got a call on my phone that says, we need a wheelchair up in Dr. So-and-so's office. And the lady is going to have a baby. I said, oh my God. I got the wheelchair, and me and God was talking very heavily about. I said, no, look, God. I said, I can change diapers. I can feed babies, but deliver babies in elevators, I don't think so. And I got off the elevator with a wheelchair, and I walked in, and the lady was going, that's when I started going. I said, ma'am, not to worry. I said, I got my driver's license in the Cracker Jack box. I'll get you there on time. And boy, when I got her there, man,
You didn't have to deliver a baby.
Didn't have to deliver a baby. And the second time I had to do that, it was a piece of cake. I just flowed with a go.
Did
and
you
got it
did you
taken
draw
care
a
of.
cartoon about it?
No, I never drew a cartoon about
It sounded like a cartoon.
Mike, this is aside, but I'd like to take this opportunity. If there are any other cartoonists that happen to see this podcast, please get in touch with you or us.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Because one of the things that my dad in '59 was in the Veterans Hospital in Dallas. He didn't have any hip joints, and he had juvenile arthritis and all that stuff. But anyhow, they flew in doctors from Florida because it was experimental hip surgery. And they said he would be in the hospital for a year and a half getting his hip replaced. Well, he was in about 6 months. But, but the point is, when I was there, I was going through the bookstore, whatever you call it there, the store. And the thought occurred to me, I'll bet you these guys would really love to see some cartoons from their era.
Absolutely.
You know, from their era. And I know Bill Malden. I don't know if anybody reads cartoons anymore. And I know Doonesbury for Vietnam, but I don't know if they like Doonesbury or not. But I just saw a need right there, and that idea has never gone away. And so if there's any cartoonist that would like to explore that possibility, making greeting cards, making stickers, making note cards.
Yeah. I know
Coffee
what you're
mugs.
talking about. It works. It works. I had an interesting thing happen this past week. I had to go over to Harris Southwest. I had a scheduling problem that came up. In fact, I canceled my heart doctor's appointment today where I could be here, and we rescheduled. But I went over to talk to him about it this past Friday, and while I was there, I went and bought me a bag of popcorn. And the guy that makes the popcorn, is a good friend of mine by the name of Lance. Well, he had bladder cancer. He got bladder cancer from Camp Lejeune. And I was in Navy uniform. I took part in the ceremony of the Battle of Midway. You saw that.
You laid the wreath. You laid
And-
the wreath at the ceremony.
Yeah, and so this lady walks by and she said, "Man, I like that Navy uniform. That Navy uniform gets you in trouble if you're not careful." And she says, "I've got a dad up in ICU. He would just love for you to come by and say hello to him." Well, I said, "Let's go. Let's do it." So I got up and we went up there and met the dad, and I got a chance to pray for him. I mean, he's out of the ICU now. He's in the progressive care unit. I do believe it was my prayer. It was him working through me to touch that man's life. And later on, I told him I was a cartoonist. So a couple of days later, in fact, Friday morning at 2:00 in the morning, God gave me an idea for a cartoon for him. I drew a Navy goat with a sailor riding a Navy goat, waving his white hat, and then I laid down the state of Texas. I had him riding in the state of Texas, and I said, "Get well soon, shipmate." And then I had to go over the base for that ceremony, you know. And while I was there, I had Captain McLean autograph it. And there were a bunch of other officers. I had the other guys sign it. And I asked Captain McLean if he had a coin I could give him. So I went back and gave him the cartoon. I gave him the coin.
That's so special.
And so he's still in the hospital, and I intend to go and see him again. He's out of the ICU now, and he's on the road to recovery, but I think he's in his 90s now. And I just wanted to go by and let the family know that, hey, we may be Navy, but we're still family and we care about each other.
Absolutely. Milburn, you were talking about whenever your dad was in the hospital and the cartoons, the hospital and things. And it just made me think about these children. We have some friends that one of their daughters is going through a lot of stuff with a tumor in their brain.
Yeah.
And just to think about how it would be to do some cartoons with those children, you know, to give them something go sit down with them and just maybe do a cartoon about their thoughts of the day or something.
The National Cartoonist Society, which I'm a member of, but it's a continuation of World War II, where the artists would go and do caricatures of the troops. And I've been on 2 or 3 troops where we did drawings of wounded warriors. And that is a moving experience. I don't think anybody's talked about doing it for children. That's a good idea.
We should, yeah. I've had a lot of people say, "You draw cartoons for children?" Mainly mine has been for people that are older, you know, and sometimes we do forget the older folks. And they're just as important as any group of people I know of. And if I can bring a smile on their face, but I see where we can do something for the kids.
But
I'd love to draw something for the
coloring book.
There's kind
Yeah,
of
a coloring book.
Absolutely.
some of these cartoons I got here could very well be worked in a coloring book for kids.
Yeah.
And you were talking a few minutes ago about who has influenced our art or cartooning with. A Star Telegram had 2 fine artists a bunch of years ago. One was Harold Maples of the Star Telegram, and the lady, I forget what her name was.
Etta
Hume, I think it was.
Home,
Home?
Hulme.
Okay. Those 2 really influenced my.
I've got drawings by both of them. Etta was a friend.
Well,
Yeah, she's incredible.
See,
lady.
that guy knows more good people, and I could learn so much from him. He's a great guy. I'm looking forward to working
Yeah.
with you guys.
Likewise.
Yeah, but those cartoons, like in the presidential libraries that I've been to, there's always a section of all the political cartoons, satire.
Well, what I have to say about Biden, that'll probably send me to jail. But
Well,
it comes from the heart.
I've been asked to do political cartoons my whole life, and I said I ain't mean enough.
Well,
but was reading the other day about what it takes to make an editorial cartoonist. And I said, boy, that's definitely not me.
Yeah.
Well,
And that's a special calling.
I'd like to get a hold of that article where I can read it, because
Yeah.
I love to get in there and dig around, like the cartoon of Biden bent over with his head up his, what.
We're gonna have to start a cartoonist club at the roll call.
Yeah,
Hey, that's a good idea.
yeah.
Good
And
idea.
we were talking at our board meeting last night because we're going to design some T-shirts and challenge coins. So we might put you guys to work for some of our.
Oh, absolutely.
I'd love to work
Artwork.
with him on,
Yeah.
man, I think we could come up with some great stuff. I really do.
Even just talking to some of the veterans there and doing a cartoon about a story they tell or
Yeah.
something. So
I can just see you gave me an idea a while ago. Me in that wheelchair and that elevator talking to God about that. Oh Lord, what am I going to do about deliver the baby in the elevator?
Well, you can put that on your resume that you deliver babies because you're a chaplain too. Remember you told me that story about
I got mistaken as the base chaplain of all things, and right after I got saved overseas in Trinidad, it was not my idea to become a Christian by any means. And the first night I checked in, they said, well, you want to stay away from this guy. And his name was Ted Conway from Swartz Creek, Michigan. And he's a nut. And all the kid was trying to do was share his beliefs with his shipmates. And the more I tried to stay away from Ted, the more God put him on my doorstep. So I told Ted, I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll go to church with you one time and one time only. Don't bother me after that. But those people were so sweet and so kind. He put a hook in my jaw and I brought back. And then after that, I was in a boathouse, bunch of bosun's mates. And those bosun's mates, I'm not trying to discredit the Navy when I say that, but those bosun's mates drove those boats better drunk than they did sober. And I was the only guy in the boathouse that went to church regularly. And if I was on duty, then I went to chapel service on base. And then when I was off duty, I went to church in town. Well, my chief called me in one day and he says, you've been elected. I said, elected to do what? And he says, you're the only guy in the boathouse that goes to church. So we had a little girl that did laundry for us, and she passed away from an upper respiratory problem. And you have been elected to present that family with a wreath of flowers and the few dollars that we owe her. The first word, can I get out of it? Typical Navy talk, can I get out of it? He said, no, you've been elected. So we had to go up on this mountaintop type hill to meet the family. And I had two guys with me. They were in uniform, and I was going to church that night, and I had a suit on. I had my Bible. Well, the old Trinidadian, he didn't know any different. So he took a look at the Bible and the suit, and he said, oh, you must be the base chaplain. I about had to count my buddies over there. They were really cracking up, And I kept my mouth shut because I could see the grief in the man's eyes losing his daughter, So I went along with the program until the young lady's uncle came to the dad and said, we have to get off of this mountaintop and go down and have the service. Well, the dad come immediately and he says, how about it? I said, how about what? He said, how about getting us off this mountaintop where we can have the service? Boy, I was doing some praying then. So I fought real military fast. I said, I'm sorry, sir, but that exceeds limits of my military policy. I thought that would get him. He didn't buy that at all. He says, you're a chaplain, aren't you? I done lied to the man. And man, I was doing some real deep praying. And in my best military voice, I spoke up and I said, all right, you guys, fall in. You know, they fell in perfect alignment. We marched down the mountainside. We got to the gravesite, to the chapel. And halfway through the service, my buddies got up and left. I was the only American there. I was the only white guy there. I felt like Custer at his last stand. I said, man, when this is over, I am pulling chalks. I am out of here. And just like a big hand at the end, turned me completely around. And honest to God, I heard an audible voice speak to me. And he says, I am not finished with you yet. And I said, oh my God. And as I went to the gravesite, the girl's uncle came up to me and he says, Chaplain, we're ready for you. And boy, talk about some deep praying. I was doing some deep praying then. I told the congregation what I knew of the young lady, what a fine person she was, how she kept our uniforms looking good. And they are very musical in Trinidad. You know, they got the Trinidad music and steel bands and all that kind of stuff. But they sang a hymn and I closed it out with prayer. And I can still see that big, burly, black Trinidadian dad coming with tears in his eyes. And he put his arms around me and hugged my neck. And he said, oh, Chaplain, thank you. Thank you. You don't forget that.
Absolutely not.
Which reminds me, I was telling Ruth, my wife,
And Ruth's
yes.
here with us, and you've been married 60 years. Right?
60 years
Wow.
in August.
Absolutely great.
Man,
We're
great.
planning a month-long trip to Alaska. And as I said, I hope I can keep up with her. But I was talking to her the other day, or this morning, I can't remember now. But with speaking of kids and in the iPad cell phone generation, somehow I think we're losing the tradition of telling family stories,
Amen.
you know? And then I got to think about roll call, and there ought to be a way to have little short segments, 3 to 5 minutes, that somebody can just tell a story about, just like that story. That's a good one of a kind story,
Yeah.
make a point and preserve it somehow, whether it's on video or whatnot, but just have a collection of stories.
That's a great idea.
And for whatever it's worth, I can always tell when it's a good idea because I get goosebumps. I do,
Yeah.
you know, and I mean, not that any,
It's just something that you know.
just when I know that it's a solid idea, I do get goosebumps with the drawing too.
Well,
I
it's
get
like getting
goosebumps.
up at 2:00 in the morning and drawing cartoons, you know.
Yeah.
You got that feeling. I said, this is it. This is what I want you to do.
Yeah.
So I've got to get up and draw it, you know.
Well, I want to give one little insight into the way that I work. And I don't remember if I told you in the email or it was somebody else, but, oh no, it was someone else. I always tell clients, I work around my limitations, you know, because there are some wonderfully gifted people that are draftsmen.
Yeah.
They can draw anything from any angle, inside out, upside down, whatever. I don't have those technical skills. But what I like to do is hear a problem, then interpret it in my own style.
Yeah.
And I can work that way. And you just, from a cartoonist point of view, and that's the way I work. But Dub Ballou used to work at before it was Carsville. Well, anyhow, he worked out General Dynamics.
Oh, General Dynamics. Okay.
Yeah. And he was a cartoonist that did a lot of safety posters. Oh, speaking of that, there's an artist during World War II. I'm going to go blank right now, but his stuff is so powerful. And he was drawing planes because guys on the flight crews were getting their heads cut off walking into props and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So he made a whole series of posters, safety posters. The Germans liked it so much, they just knocked it off and put it in German.
Yeah.
Use his drawings.
Yeah.
You know, wow, that's pretty powerful.
Well,
Very powerful.
one of the things I did, you know, you get all kinds of safety magazines in the Navy, you know. So what I did then, I would take small articles out and I made it into one big poster and I called it Safety Tidbits. And the ones that weren't illustrated with cartoons, I put cartoons in there. And I started off with one poster board in a strategic location. And we had a Marine Corps colonel fly in, RON, and he saw that poster and he went and got a hold of the commanding officer of the base and told him about it. And I got a letter of commendation from it. And before it was over with, I'd take that poster, I'd move it to a new location where it would touch more people. Then I'd make another one. And pretty soon I had the whole base covered with safety posters.
And even though being an artist or a cartoonist wasn't your primary job, it kind of enhanced your time in the Navy, didn't it?
Yeah.
Oh,
it really
absolutely.
did.
Yeah.
I was aviation ordnance. I handled weaponry and stuff like that. And I was probably the worst ordnanceman they ever had because
You were too busy doing cartoons.
yeah, I'd rather do cartoons. I had worked with bombs or guided missiles or stuff like that. And I got in a lot of trouble because I didn't have the knowledge. I never went to school for ordnance school. And so at first, I didn't know anything about the aviation ordnance rate. And I got into a lot of trouble because I didn't have the knowledge for it or the skills. And one thing, God worked out a situation where I got called in one night they told me, you're supernumerary. We got this general's airplane coming in and we want you, you're lucky enough, you got to draw. You're going to guard this airplane. I said, oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I said, what's the uniform? Well, we don't know. I said, what's the rules of engagement? How am I supposed to? He says, we don't know. I said, you guys don't know, excuse me, but you don't know a whole hell of a lot, do you? And I said, I'm going to show you how to stand a watch. Because I had, about a year before that, I just got out of the Marine Corps. And, buddy, you better know how to stand a watch in the Marines. And that officer of the day came out, and he just stood there with his mouth hanging open. And he came over to me and he says, Sailor, he says, I've never seen a man stand a more perfect watch. He says, how would you like to get a cup of coffee? And he said, I'll watch your airplane. I have never had an officer to offer to watch my plane while I had a cup of coffee.
That's a good deal.
And he said, furthermore, he said, I'd like to see you in my office Monday morning. So I reported in, and he says, you're one sharp dude. He said, how would you like to fly aircrew? I said, fly aircrew? I said, what do I have to do? He said, we'll appropriate the funds for you go to aircrew school. And then you come back and you fly 4 hours a month and you make $100 extra flight pay. I said,
Nothing
yeah,
wrong
throw
with
me
that.
in that bright patch. And I ended up going to tech training as a small arms instructor and doing a lot of post work.
Got your training in.
Yeah, I had to turn around for me.
Milburn, are you're gonna move up here? Are you still doing some work with your design studio? And
Yeah. One of the clients I've had the longest is Jane Slansker here in Fort Worth. And I worked with her back in the 70s when we were here. And we reconnected quite a few years ago when I was in Austin. And I've been working with her over 40 years, but I've been helping them recently on the Mimir concert being held at TCU. I designed their program and there are a few other things. And so I still work with her. I hate to say it, but most of my clients are retired or dead. So
Sounds like me.
You've outlived your clients, which is good, huh?
and well, and tastes have changed. And you know, it's like I've always told people, you look. I think it's kind of around 10-year cycles, but you look at cartoons from the 40s, from the 50s, the 60s. They've all got a certain look. And right now, like New Yorker magazine, I can't stand looking at the cartoons. They're so poorly drawn. They're conceptual, I guess, but they're sometimes people, you're doing stick figures, and that's not a cartoon, you know. And so tastes change. And so we're just trying to find little things where we can help. You know?
Yeah.
And you know, there's a lot of opportunity. You know, just talking with y'all this morning, like we were talking about the wounded warriors. You know, I could see a lot of opportunity to help them, to help our veterans with post-traumatic stress, and you know, of course, to help children. You know, because there's just a magic about illustrations like cartoons, I think. So.
Well, the National Cartoonist went to San Antonio to the Burn Center one time, and they told us that some of the vets will be willing to talk and some won't. And there was one guy in there that it broke my heart, but I was just overjoyed to having a chance to meet him. He was a California surfer. He lost all 4 limbs in Iraq or someplace, but his attitude was off the charts. And his buddies would take him out and take him surfing, you know. And then we went over to the Burn Center. This is where the amputees were. And then we went over to the Burn Center, and there was a young man there that had been burned from one end to the other and all wrapped up. But what really touched me, this is another aspect of what you're talking about, the father came in, and you could just see the pain in his eyes. And you know what he's thinking.
Yeah.
I wish it had been me.
Yeah.
You know, and that was the most moving experience I think I had in that whole time. Well, I want to make this point. We were talking earlier about, I missed the war. I was in the Philippines. I was in Japan, sent to the Philippines when the Gulf of Tonkin happened. So therefore I was Vietnam era. But I was never any physical, whatever. So I've always kept an arm's length from veterans groups because there's a brotherhood there that only war.
I know the feeling. I didn't
And
go
I'm
to
like
Nam
that too.
myself.
I'm always real clear whenever somebody says you're a Vietnam veteran. I say, no, I'm a Vietnam era veteran. I didn't go to Vietnam. So.
But here's the way and this is through roll call that we just happened to discover by accident, is suddenly I'm feeling like I can make my war contribution by doing something for the vets.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I feel connection that I've never felt before. And so I'm really thankful for that.
Well, I'm glad that you two got together. Mary got you all and said, hey, here's another cartoonist. Because I can see a lot of great things coming from your two being friends. So
You never know.
absolutely.
Oh, I tell you, one of the greatest adventures I've ever been on is when I went and got my daughter off the streets of San Francisco.
We'll have to tell that story another time because we're out of time today.
It's well worth
and we may sit down sometime, just you and I, and to tell that story.
And people will need to know,
Absolutely.
not give up on your kid, because
That's right.
that same street kid has now got a master's degree in clinical psychology, and she went to college with a 8th grade education, graduated in the top 10% of her class. And at that time, when I got her off the street, I had not seen her in 6 years. So I've got quite a story to tell about that.
And we'll get together and we'll
do
be
that.
sure to
Yeah,
do
you bet.
that. But for today, our time's up, and we really appreciate you two guys
You bet.
and your contribution to making our world a better place to live through your
Or maybe a little bit
creativity.
more fun.
Yeah, a little more
Absolutely.
fun.
Yeah.
And I can learn a lot from this man here. I'm looking
We
forward
can
to
learn
it.
a lot from each other. And I'm looking
Absolutely.
forward to getting with you all both and learning more about the technology part and then about your work, because you both of you have a lot of work here that we just don't have time to show, but we really want to share that with other people. But I know Mary, I hope she's listening from home, but it's a quiet day at her house, especially for her husband, because she can't talk today. So, but she wanted me to thank you all both for being here today. And our luncheon's the 23rd, and we're going to have the Tuskegee Airman, Dr. Richardson. He's going to be here. He's going to be on the show, and then he's going to be a roll call on the 23rd. The reservation lines are open. And she's asking that non-vets wait to RSVP until Saturday so that we can fill as many spots for veterans as possible. And also remember that the 12th of June is the Women's Veterans Day. So I'll have to be sure, my wife's a veteran, I'll have to be sure and remind myself to say happy Veterans Day for the women. And then Friday the 9th, the Black Rifle Coffee Company, it's out off of Heritage Trace out by Alliance. And they're going to have a soft opening, and it's going to be a fundraiser for roll call. It's Friday, the 9th of June from 10 to 2 at the Alliance location, 3201 Tracewood Way. So we can, we'll have some of that information on our Facebook page on where to go, because part of the proceeds are going to come back to roll call. And then we have the clay shoot October the 15th at Defender Outdoors, and we're looking forward to that. It's going to be a good day. We're looking forward to raising a lot of money so we can keep feeding you veterans. So
Yeah.
But Larry, you've been working today.
Yeah,
You got a lot of stuff going on.
yeah, we got lots of work. Summertime's here, you know.
That's
The
right.
rain's fixing to be gone. We'll be
The-
begging for it here in August.
Yeah, rain's not a good time for the car detail business
Yeah.
usually.
No.
But it does mess up the cars, so they have to bring them back.
Yep.
Larry's got a bike drive he does every year, so that's going to be the Saturday,
December 16th,
December
37th
16th.
year.
and he's giving away over 16,000 bicycles.
Yep.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
That's something that maybe y'all can get involved in
Yeah.
and help with a little advertise
Draw
drawings
some
and things
bicycles,
like
yeah.
that. But
That'd be great.
we appreciate y'all being here today. And
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you
it's
for
been
having
a
us.
real honor and privilege to be with y'all.
Thank you.
I'm honored and privileged to be with this guy here. He's
Man,
fantastic.
both of you are
You
so
guys are great.
talented, and to see these talents come together to be able to share with each other and learn from each other.
And get a chance to meet his lovely wife of
Absolutely.
60 some years it
We'll
was.
be 60 in August.
60.
59,
Wow.
59 and counting, right?
Yeah, 59 counting.
Dusty and Tyler, thank y'all for your work back there on the boards and the cameras, and we appreciate that.
Yes, we do.
And we've got a minute or two. Larry, what do you want to talk about real quick?
We've got a boxing in Cowtown program, June 24th at Old South.
Okay.
That's the 9th or 10th one of those. Our birthday party, 10th birthday party, is July 29th out at the Point. So everything's just rocking along,
And
except for our political group. It's a mess.
in the boxing in Cowtown, I think we have a lot of younger boxers.
I
I've
hope.
been talking it up at the boxing gyms and trying to get those younger boxers to come
Sure.
and meet the older boxers, the
Sure.
ones from the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
We have a lot of world champions that come there.
Yes.
So
We're going to have 4 for sure, and maybe 5 or 6
that's good.
that are.
You said
Past world
Nick
champions.
Wells will be here?
That's the plan. Is
Okay.
Nick will be coming in from Mineola. Only man to ever knock out Larry Holmes twice.
He's always a good guy to have.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
one of our hometown heroes
Yeah.
for boxing. for
Oh,
sure.
yeah. Yeah.
We've had some good boxers. And then in July, Kendrick Rutherford.
Is
gonna
having
have,
another-
He's going to have an amateur tournament, and then I think the Thursday after the amateur tournament, I'll get the dates out to you to be correct on those. Then we'll have another professional tournament. So
Yeah, Kendrick's doing a great
he's,
job.
He's doing good. See professional boxing on a regular basis back in Fort Worth. So.
Right.
But we appreciate y'all being
Yeah.
here. Ruth,
Thank
thank
you.
you for being here. And Larry, we'll see you next week. And Mary, you need to gargle a lot. So you
Yeah,
can talk
Mary.
again.
Come back, get well before the 20th.
And this is Hometown Heroes, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
See ya.